Hey everybody, Mr. Maupin coming at you once again with another APUSH video. Topic 6.8 again, looking at immigration and migration in the Gilded Age, aka late 19th century. Last time we were talking about, the various groups of immigrants that were coming over to the United States and why they came over, and a little bit of the reaction to that. But note, at the same time that we are seeing this tremendous influx of immigration into the United States, we're also seeing a dramatic urbanization movement that is happening. I mean, it started obviously slowly before the Civil War, but after the Civil War, it really takes on steam in terms of, more and more people, coming, looking for opportunity. Take a look at this stat right here. By the time we get to 1900, about 40% of Americans are going to be living in cities. Take a look at this skyline of New York during this time period. You can see how, America is not just moving outwards, but in these large cities with dense populations and limited land like Lower Manhattan right here, people are moving up. We see the emergence of skyscrapers, with cheap access to steel now. And so you are seeing more and more people moving to the cities and really defining what a city looks like anymore. And think about why these cities would be so attractive. Part of it, is the opportunity for, experiencing things like, the theater and being able to, see a baseball game perhaps, seeing electric lights and, so there's things that you would not have ever really probably seen before for many of these folks moving to the big cities, folks that had lived maybe in foreign countries or in rural areas or whatever. And note, it's going to be folks that are going to be, looking for more economic opportunities. We talked about, poverty that is going to be driving a lot of immigrants into the United States. And obviously, you're going to be seeing farmers that are going to be facing lower prices due to overproduction and expensive farm machinery, kind of giving up on farming and looking for more stable work in big cities. And so, both of these two big groups are going to be moving to the cities because that's where the factories are. That's where the jobs are. Remember, the number one source of migration is always economic. People are moving in order for more economic opportunities. Now, at the same time as you are seeing this influx of people moving into the cities, and note, folks, a large chunk of these folks moving to the big cities do not have much money. And as a reaction to, some of this urban growth that's going to be happening, and mind you, new technology, for example, like streetcars, as you can see pictured here. This is one from San Francisco, if I'm correct. You are going to be seeing cities, changing as well. Not just folks living in that dense urban area, but the emergence of what we're going to start to see now as suburbs. Communities are going to be just outside the central urban areas, but close enough to be able to go to work every day and enjoy the leisure activities of a big city through the influx of mass transit, be it a streetcar, subway lines, whatever, but far enough away from the big cities to avoid the growing issues with pollution, growing issues with crime, dense populations making it more conducive for the spread of communicable diseases. And so suburbs, if you had the money, were a great opportunity. You had kind of the best of both worlds, the best of urban opportunities and a more rural lifestyle. And if folks with money are going to be moving out to the suburbs, well, who's going to be left behind? Well, not a big surprise. Poor folks and immigrants are going to be left behind in these cities. And so you're going to start to see, big cities, starting to have larger impoverished neighborhoods in there. For example, like in Lower Manhattan, you had, the 5 Points area that is going to be this very large, super densely populated area of very poor people. And where do poor people live? How do poor people live? Well, in these urban areas, a lot of these folks are going to be living in what we call tenements. A tenement pictured right here is a very small apartment. If you are thinking about, say like, our classroom, imagine living in an apartment that's about half the size of our classroom. And that, apartment might be kind of divided in half, a front half and a back half, perhaps. A front half that, might have a stove, might have a couple chairs, maybe a table, and then a back half that, might have a couple of beds or a straw mattress or something along those lines. And then add to the mix that you're probably talking about anywhere from 6 to 10 people living in there. So, these are very, very cramped, crowded conditions. There's no air conditioning. Running water is going to be limited. For some folks, they are going to have, communal restrooms in the hallways. So imagine, being home but having to share your bathroom with, a couple of dozen other people, perhaps. And the poorest of those folks living in tenements didn't even have that. So you still had people, having to use buckets and then emptying them out into the alleyways and all that kind of stuff. So, that's pretty rough. As you can see here, there's, pretty crowded conditions living in these apartments. And it's going to, kind of help to explain why you always see images of big cities during the late 19th century. They always seem to be outside. They always seem to be out of the buildings. And for, poor working class people, you can kind of get a better sense as to why that is. There really wasn't much to do in there, and there really wasn't much space. So, these are very, very tough conditions. Some of these folks, actually use their apartments as also places where they earned money. For example, as you can see here, doing some type of seamstress work, could be laundry, it could be, some sort of, craft work of some sort. So understand that you could have in a very small confined space, you might have what would be your living area and your working area all in one place. So it could be extremely crowded. It could be very difficult to find quiet. Privacy is certainly not existent at this point. So, this is very, very difficult stuff. Take a look at this picture of a series of tenement buildings here in New York, and you can see here, these are folks that, they don't have access yet. They have not really invented electric washing machines and electric dryers and stuff like that. And so you see folks that are, putting their clothes to dry on, clotheslines, and these clotheslines connecting across alleyways to, different tenement buildings. This is how many millions of Americans are going to be living during this time period. And, this is an effect of urbanization. This is an effect of immigration, but it's also an effect of industrialization. The fact that, these folks are living in poverty not because they are lazy or, don't want to work. This is the best that they can do given the opportunities that really exist at this time. So, these are pretty, rough living conditions that a lot of these folks living in urban areas are going to have to deal with. Imagine, living in one of these communities and a fire breaks out. Fires spread crazy. As I mentioned before, communicable diseases, be it, scarlet fever or, smallpox, typhoid, measles, list goes on and on. Those things spread like crazy. Now, that being said, there's also going to be something else that's going to define a lot of these urban neighborhoods. And, we're going to be seeing as more and more, diverse ethnic groups are going to be entering into the United States. You're going to see these different ethnic groups beginning to kind of live in their own individual neighborhoods to some degree. So we call these ethnic neighborhoods. And, if you think about it like, well, why would that happen? Why would you just kind of, blend in with everybody else and not really think about ethnicity? Well, you got to think about it. If logically speaking, okay, let's say, for example, that you want to go eat in the cafeteria for lunch. Do you want to just eat with random people that you have nothing in common with potentially? Or would you rather eat lunch with people that, have the same interests, are, have a similar background as you, maybe, like the same food, for example. And that's going to make this, it's going to be the same argument for living in ethnic neighborhoods. If you are an Italian immigrant, you want to live somewhere where, for example, there's a Catholic church nearby. And it sure would be helpful in a new country, in a new land, to have people that can understand you, that know your language. The typical American didn't speak Italian. So if you lived in an Italian neighborhood, well, that would be, pretty nice. If there are, holidays that you were used to celebrating back home in Italy, here in America, it's probably a decent chance a lot of those holidays would not be celebrated. But in an ethnic neighborhood of fellow Italians, you're much more likely to see that happen. If you like to eat certain types of food back home, a typical American restaurant, is not going to have Italian food most likely. But so live in a neighborhood where people do like those things and know how to make those things, and you can enjoy it. And it just kind of goes on and on and on. And so you see these different ethnic neighborhoods popping up, be it, Greektown in Detroit, Polish neighborhoods in Chicago, Chinatown in San Francisco, or, Little Italy in New York. Now, this is obviously a much more modern image of Little Italy, but, the idea being is that you create this neighborhood of people that you relate to easily. That's not to say that you don't want to exist beyond this neighborhood, but, being able to kind of get acclimated to a new country with new people and new values and all these kinds of things, it makes that transition a lot easier. And so, that's why you're going to see that. And now, granted, nativists are not going to be a fan of this. Nativists are not going to like the idea of, storefronts that are going to be, having signs with foreign languages on them. Some of these folks are not going to like, people dressing differently than what they're used to and living in certain neighborhoods. So there's going to be a pushback against this, and there's going to be, charges that these folks don't really want to be Americans. They just, they just kind of want to invade and, kind of, have their own little communities, and that's it, which is really, false and obviously kind of a racist attitude on it. So anyhow, note, some of these neighborhoods are still around today. Like, as you can see here, Little Italy in New York, and there's a number of Chinatowns across America, amongst many other ethnic neighborhoods. So anyhow, be mindful of, the emergence of ethnic neighborhoods as one of the effects of urbanization that's going to be taking place. All right. So we will leave it there for now. We'll see you next time. Bye-bye.